Session 3 features inquiry-based teaching and learning. In Houston, Texas, Jorge Arredondo's students explore Rudolfo Anaya's Bless Me Ultima and look for related themes in a mural depicting the struggles of Mexican Americans. In New York City, the students in Bo Wu's classroom read 3 works by James Baldwin. Sparked by their personal interests, the students research topics related to James Baldwin's works and collaborate to produce group websites.
My name is Rodolfo Anaya, and I write about what I know best: New Mexico, the people, the landscape, and the stories that are here. I am a product of an oral tradition, not a written tradition. We grew up hearing cuentos, hearing the folk stories. People were fantastic storytellers. Anybody that came to visit the family would just tell a story all night long, you know. I write because our oral tradition was dying, and there was something in me that was telling me the culture and the folklore and what I call the spirit of my place has to be in books. That's how we're going to share it in the future. Bless Me Ultima started out as a story of a young boy, of rites of passage of Antonio. But very quickly I discovered that it was more than that. It's about the community, the culture, the history. I think what happened during the process of writing Bless Me Ultima is that Ultima came into it. Ultima appeared to me and told me that she had to be in the novel. And once she appeared in the novel, then the novel acquired a soul, a life. It was more than just a story about Antonio growing up. And as I delved deeper and deeper into that landscape, it acquired an element of the sacred. That's where I came from. And I think she represents those people that used to tell stories. You have to remember, my novel was published in 1972. This is the beginning of the Chicano movement. Those were beautiful times in the sense that any literary movement is a time to be alive. There were readings, there were marches, there were protests against universities, strikes. Cesar Chavez came on the scene. We were engaging a political situation in the 1960s in which Mexicanos in this country are oppressed and in search of identity. And suddenly in 1972 there was Bless Me Ultima. It had a soul to it that spoke about not just civil rights and social protest, but it spoke about soul, you know, alma, el alma de la gente, the soul of the people. And it didn't matter if you were on strike in California against a university or helping the farm workers, you could still recognize in that novel your own cultural background. And now, 30 years later, the novel is still there, I think, speaking in the same way to the soul of the people, to the soul of the community.
I am Jorge Arredondo. I'm a teacher at Charles H. Milby here in Houston, Texas. We're an urban high school, about 2,500 students. I teach 10th grade English, the 2 regular classes, 2 magnet classes, and the 2 advanced classes. Okay, good morning, class. How we doing this morning? Fine. Good. So y'all already know we've been reading Bless Me Ultima, and some of y'all we've been talking a little bit about it, and some of y'all been wanting to get more into the book. So today what we're going to do, you're going to go into the book and try to think about what were some of the parts that you really enjoyed. And then later on, what I also want to do is to go see a mural. The mural painting was done in the early 1970s, and it kind of depicts some of the themes that are very similar to Antonio, to the Marez family, to the Luna family, and what's going on here, especially when you consider the folklore that's in here in this book also. And then at the same time, some of y'all have some questions. Okay, I remember almost every morning you guys were coming to me and telling me, oh, I have this question, Mr. Arredondo, what's going on in this, or why is this going on? Okay, well, this is the day when I want you to go ahead and formulate those questions so that we can begin a discourse about those questions. Go ahead and look in your book and try to find a passage and write that passage down in your notebook. And once you've done that, then we're going to go ahead and start to share. And feel free to grab any other quote or any other passage that you want that has a theme that's personal to you, a theme that relates to you, that caught your attention, or that you want further answers from, okay? One of the first things we do is get initial reactions from the students so that they know that this is something that is student-centered. Whatever they're thinking at the time, whatever knowledge that they have is good. I wanted them to make sure they understood what was the literature saying to them and respond and get their initial reactions on paper, because that is something that you need to serve as a base before you begin to move on and do higher level questioning.
Bless Me Ultima by Rodolfo Anaya really became a classic for its structure of questioning and identity formation. It's a story of a young person who is trying to find himself amid the kinds of conflicts that divide families, divide societies. I think the great struggle that we all have in our lives to find ourselves is epitomized by Antonio, who really is debating mentally on the pages of this book between one side of his family and the other side of his family, between history and tradition, between religion and folklore. This really showed in very concrete manner how conflicts impinge upon the psychology of the individual.
Go ahead and begin sharing.
The part I like to talk about is on which side would Antonio choose, his father's side or the mother's side, where his father wants Antonio to be a man of the llano, or where his mother wants Antonio to be a priest.
Good, good. Can you kind of tell me a little bit about, is there some, share with the class what your mom wants you to be and maybe what your dad would like for you to be? You want to share that?
Well, my mother, like, she wants me to be like, go to college and study for a career and to have a better job. And like my dad wants me like the same thing, but he wants me to be another thing. Like I have a different career from my mother's, and I'm not really sure which one to choose or.
So yeah, I can see I can see how that relates to the Mares family and the Luna family.
For me, inquiry begins with what I call wandering and wondering. It takes us often quite a while to find an inquiry question, the right kind of inquiry question, also to frame it in an appropriate sort of way. So when I'm advising teachers about setting up an inquiry-based curriculum, I want them to begin to think about having some extended period of time in which kids can wonder and wander in the curriculum. I think a lot of inquiry really begins with an itch, and what you want to help kids do is attend to the things that didn't quite make sense, because it's that sort of itch that oftentimes makes the best research question.
I like chapter 10. It talks about how Antonio's uncle, Lucas, was sick because of the trementina, which had cast a spell on him. And the priest couldn't cure him, but Ultima did. This was very confusing for Antonio because he was a Catholic and he believed that he didn't understand why the priest couldn't cure him and Ultima did.
Okay. Maybe somebody wants to share a little bit about how does this relate to you? Do you sometimes see that duality?
I started questioning God when my father died. I felt if God loves you so much and looks forward, like looks after you a lot, then why does he take the things that matter the most to you?
That's something that's very important. That's something that I think all of us go through at one point or another when we experience, especially when we experience something as tragic as losing a family member. Okay. Would y'all like to hear a part that maybe I want to bring up?
Yeah.
Okay. I read this book when I first started college, and so I have a different point of view than you guys. And so depending on how your age and what kind of knowledge you have, it does shape your point of view. I was about 19 years old at the time. I was beginning to question my parents' belief. Okay, if you look at the bottom of page 84, let me read that passage. It says, my uncle spoke as if he knew the witches who cursed Lucas. And I also wonder, why doesn't the priest fight against the evil of the brujas? He has the power of God, the Virgin, and all the saints of the Holy Mother Church behind him. Okay, and that was the first time that I actually saw someone in print question God, question the Virgin. And, you know, growing up Catholic, to me that was something important. I never began to think that you could question God or question the church. So that's something that as a young Mexican-American male growing up here in Texas, that it really got my attention. Maybe you have a different point of view. Does somebody else want to share? Okay. Mr. Tanaka?
I will go with one understanding. Ultima cautioned. She raised her finger and pointed at both of them. The gaze of
Ultima is really a powerful character. She's a powerful character and a powerful symbol. She is this blending of Catholic beliefs and pre-Columbian beliefs, of folk medicine and institutional religious practices, and she kind of mediates all the worlds that are there. She kind of becomes a symbol of New Mexico culture unto itself.
She's like willing to help him, like face it, like willing to help him even though it's really bad. Like good deeds sometimes have bad sacrifices, and she's consequences, and she's willing to do that for the brother.
Okay, and plus you also see how she mentions how bruja or curandera or priest or sinner, okay, whether good or evil, you have to be willing to accept those consequences that you mentioned, and that ultimately if you tamper with the earth, which is a belief that comes, you know, from far back when the Mayans and the Aztecs were here in the Americas. So I think that's something that Rodolfo Anaya is also touching on right there. So that's good. That's good. Someone else would like to share? Okay, Roxy.
Mine is on page 261. Her hand touched my forehead, and her last words were, I bless you in the name of all that is good and strong and beautiful, Antonio. Always have strength to live. Love life, and if despair enters your heart, look for me in the evenings when the wind is gentle and the owls sing in the hills. I shall be with you. I picked this because the way the rhythm is, the way it was worded in the form, and especially that line where it says always have strength to live. To me it says like always have hope and never give up.
Good, good. I like that. Good. So you see that everybody is proud of this young boy doing well in school. What about the carp?
The golden carp was like, since her mother wanted him to be a priest, but he had a belief that, by old Indian beliefs, that the golden carp was like a god also, and he didn't know whether if he wanted to be a priest of higher learning or believe maybe in the golden carp. He questioned also his faith.
That's a very good explanation about the carp and the duality there. I like that.
We know that a strain in all of Anaya's works has been the capturing and reinterpretation of traditional myths and legends.